Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the David Seaton Show live. We are live, and we are actually live on two platforms tonight. We are live on Facebook, and we are also live on YouTube. So we are going live on two actual platforms tonight, and we're really excited. We've got a great show for you tonight. Jamal Green is going to be joining us shortly. So, and we also have a surprise guest coming up that you don't want to miss. You definitely want to hang out until the end of the show. So, for those of you who are already in the room, do me a favor, drop a like, go ahead and drop a like, drop a comment, make sure that you're being interactive and share the show. We do have a sponsor for tonight's show, so we're waiting for Jamal to join us momentarily. We're going to be talking about all things Chicago tonight because Chicago is in shambles. Make sure I'm checking my audio to make sure everybody can hear me. Like I said, jump in the chat and leave a comment really quickly. But I do want to go ahead and just run this quick commercial for our sponsor this evening. We do have a sponsor, and I'm really excited. I wanted to go ahead and share this really quickly. I just had this figured out. Oh, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share this quick commercial for our sponsor tonight. Our sponsor is Maytag Laundry. And you definitely for businesses out there, this is something that you definitely want to make sure that you take advantage of. Let me go ahead and make sure I have this up and ready for you. And I have it coming up. Again, I appreciate your patience. This is a one-man operation. So I appreciate your patience. We're going to go ahead and share this link really quickly. Let me go ahead and play that for you now. So that is Maytag Laundry. They are located in Glendale Heights, Illinois. They do pickup and drop off service. So for any businesses out there, if you're a spa, if you're a restaurant, a hotel, if you're a school, you have uniforms, if you're a private organization, you can reach out to Maytag Laundry at www.maytaglaundryservice.com, and you can you get a personal consultation. Again, they're doing a lot of business, especially, like I said, with spas and restaurants and hotels and the like. So again, reach out to Maytag Laundry Service. That URL again is www.maytaglaundryservice.com. I'll be sure to put that down in the chat. So we're waiting for Jamal to join us. Again, I'm looking at the chat. It's filling up. We got Mike, Solution Mike. We switched to a third political party for political leverage. Shout out to Mike. He actually followed my show on WVON 1690. And for those of you who do not know, I did make this announcement. I am no longer with WVON. We decided to part ways, and I wish them the very best of luck. I had a 7-year run on WVON, so I enjoyed all of my time there. I learned a lot, met a lot of great people, so shout out to them. But guess what? Now we have the opportunity to do this. Forgive me that my camera jumped. But now we have a 100% great opportunity to create and curate a completely different environment and a completely different community here. And we're going to have a lot more freedom in what we talk about. We're going to be talking about, like I said, Chicago and Brandon Johnson. Like I said, I've got some clips laid up or lined up. So as soon as Jamal Green joins us, I might even go ahead and play one just to kind of set the mood. I see the people who are joining us on the live feed. Brother Patah, shout out to Brother Patah. Shout out to Correctional Officer. Again, really appreciate you, brother. He gave a lot of interaction on primary night. That was actually the last night that I broadcasted on WVON. And a lot of people, characterized it that it was, I guess the best word I'll use is combative, but that's fine. Like I said, it was a great night. We had some winners and losers. Shout out to Christian Maxwell, that she is now the Republican nominee running against Jonathan Jackson. Shout out to Stephanie Trussell. Both of them have been interviewed on this show. We'll be bringing them back to have them and follow their candidacy between now and the end of the primary season, or now the primary season is over, to the general in November. Let's see. Laura Miller, Laura Miller. She just posted. Okay, so yeah, he's going to be coming in a minute. So again, to all of those of you who are joining this feed tonight, like I said, do me a favor when you come into the room, just drop a like. And here's a way that you can support the show. And I always want to make sure that I let people know that you can support this show directly. And I've made it really, really easy. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can do a super chat, but you can also support this show through either Venmo at DA Seaton or at Cash App at $, the David Seaton Show. And I would ask everyone who has the ability to, for those of you who don't have the ability to, and you're just participating in the feed, I appreciate you. For those of you who want to support this show and help us grow this platform, you can always support the show that way. You can always send in, like I said, through Venmo or through Super Chat. What is it? Cash App. I'm sorry. Super Chats, Cash App, or Venmo. This is my first time using Cash App. So, that's kind of new to me. So I'm looking forward to that. Do me a favor really quickly as we're getting this started off. For those of you who like Brandon Johnson, put a number 1 in the chat. And if you don't like Brandon Johnson, put a number 2 in the chat. And then if you want to, go ahead and tell me why or why not. But while we're waiting for Jamal to join us, let's go ahead and look at one of these first videos that we're going to be discussing this evening. There's just so much going on in Chicago. Let me bring up this first feed. This one is, let me make sure this is the correct one. I don't know, most of you have heard the story about Jose Medina, who was here illegally and who actually killed a local woman who was a college student at Loyola University. That woman lost her life at the hands of someone who wasn't even supposed to be in the country. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. We have a college student who was minding her own business and lost her life because the city of Chicago has this welcoming ordinance and they refuse to cooperate with ICE. When Brandon Johnson, when people ask him about that, he uses this kind of defense like, oh, well, that was passed under Mayor Harold Washington. And when people say that, because I've spoken to aldermen and alderwomen in Chicago, and they'll kind of say, oh, well, that, Mayor Harold Washington was the one who did that. And they kind of say it like, oh, because you can't question Harold Washington. If he did it, then it's okay. But it's important to remember, Harold Washington, when he passed that sanctuary city ordinance for the city of Chicago, number one, that was back in the 80s, number one. And number two, he did it at the exact same time that then President Ronald Reagan passed an amnesty for the 3 million illegals who were in the country then. So at that time, it was appropriate to have a welcome city ordinance because you had the federal government and the city of Chicago acting in concert. Fast forward to today, it's a completely different landscape. And it is completely disingenuous to pretend like because Harold Washington passed this law or this ordinance over 40 years ago, that we should still adhere to that today. I think that's silly. But let me go ahead and make sure I'm pulling up the correct clip for us to watch. I'm trying to make sure I put up the right one. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Let's go ahead and start off with this clip while we're waiting for Jamal to join us. Let's take a listen to this.
A migrant from Venezuela is due in court today after being charged with murder and other felonies in the death of an 18-year-old college student in Chicago. Sheridan Gordon Gorman was shot and killed while walking with friends near campus. Her family saying, quote, Sheridan was 18. She had her entire life ahead of her, her education, her future, her family. The countless lives she would have touched, all of that was taken in a moment. And there's no way to repair the loss. What Sheridan was doing that night, walking with friends near her campus, was normal. It was safe. It is what students do every day. We will not allow this to be dismissed as a wrong place, wrong time. This was not a random misfortune. This was a violent and preventable act. Veteran Chicago reporter William J. Kelly joins us now. William, thanks so much for joining the program. I just want to go through Medina's history. In May 9th, 2023, Medina was apprehended by the Border Patrol and released into the country under the Biden administration. And then June 23, Medina was released again following an arrest for shoplifting in Chicago. What do you make of this?
God bless you, Lawrence. Thank you for bringing attention to this issue. No one else will talk about it, apparently. You know, as a lifelong Chicagoan, it breaks my heart. As a Loyola University alum, it breaks my heart, but it also makes me angry because this was the single most avoidable loss of life, Sheridan Gorman, in the history of Chicago.
That's William F. Kelly. And I actually had him on one of my last shows on WVON. And what he said is completely accurate. This was 100% avoidable. The only thing that Chicago police had to do was hold this individual, and the Trump administration, they actually did reach out to the city of Chicago and said, hey, hold this person under a detainer and then turn them over to ICE. But Chicago CPD is not going to do that under orders from whom? From Brandon Johnson. So think about, again, this could have happened to any one of us. Any one of us could have just been going along, minding our own business, living our lives, doing what you do every day, go to work, go to school, go to the grocery store, whatever it is. And then you get approached by, one of the aldermen tried to even put the blame on Sheridan and say, oh, she might have startled him, and that's why he reacted the way that he did. But she was just an 18-year-old kid. All of us have been 18 years old before. And the fact that this individual was not supposed to be in the country, had already committed offenses before. Again, so allegedly, let me just put the word allegedly on this, allegedly, until this individual is actually processed through the system. But this is preventable, and this mayor, blue cities, blue states, they are putting the lives and the convenience of people who are here illegally before you and I, who are U.S. citizens. And William Kelly said it brilliantly, that should make you angry. It should make you angry that you're paying taxes and that you are here legally, you're a U.S. citizen, and that the life of you or of someone whom you love could be just snatched away because you have these far left Democratic policies that are just not. If you and I broke any of the laws that these illegal immigrants are breaking, we would be in jail. Think about that for a minute. The penalty for if you or I do something, you and I will be held accountable. But because someone is here illegally, they're not going to be held accountable. I think that is repugnant, and we should be holding these politicians like Brandon Johnson accountable. But unfortunately, the narrative in Black Chicago is we got to keep Brandon Johnson in office because he's Black. Which to me, again, just infuriates me when I hear people make that argument that you're just going to vote for someone because they're Black, even though they are actively managing the city to the disadvantage of the very people whose taxes pay his salary. And that's just, I can't even just wrap my mind around it. Let's look at a couple of more comments on here. Tread 1775. I appreciate you, man. Shout out to Tread. He was actually one of the first people, one of the first three people who was commenting on the David Seaton Show's YouTube page, and he crossed 100 comments. I appreciate you. Chocolate 82467 posted, he lied and said that the Safety Act was passed by Rauner. Total and complete lie. it was passed by Pritzker. Well, he is correct about that, Chocolate 82467. The Bruce Rauner was governor and did sign the actual law that made Illinois a sanctuary state. But it's important to even put that into context. We oftentimes say, oh, this governor or this president passed the law. It had to pass both houses in the Assembly and the state Senate before it got to his desk for an actual signature. And we know that Springfield is controlled by a super majority of Democrats. So if you don't like what's going on in Illinois, but from high taxes to making laws that are, I think, too friendly to criminals, pardon me, or raising fines and fees or Second Amendment, any of those things that are going on in Illinois that you don't like, the governor signs it into law, but it has to first come out of this supermajority of Democrats who are controlling Springfield. And that's why it's important that we need to get some diversity in Springfield. I'm not saying that to vote red instead necessarily because I'm a Republican, because I'm not. I'm a conservative independent. But looking at how the Democrats have a chokehold on Springfield, you have to blame the politicians, the state senators and the state U.S. representatives who are passing these laws. They are the ones that are passing these crazy laws. There's just an echo chamber down there that they just are all they know how to do is raise taxes, make it easier for immigrants, make it easier for criminals, and make it hard for people like you and me. And that's what is so infuriating. Correctional officer just posted, Sheridan Gorman's family is with some heavy hitters too, and Trump knows them quite well. This is not going to play out the usual way. People are very upset about this travesty. You're absolutely right. People should be upset. Robert Dixon just posted, come on, man, this kind of stuff ain't new. This is some sick stuff that people do. If it was something that could be done about and he goes on, Robert Dixon, again, follower of the show. I disagree, Robert. This is something all that has to be done. If you are here illegally and you commit a crime, that's supposed to qualify you for an automatic deportation. So you don't see these kinds of things happening in Iowa or Indiana or Missouri, because those states that are red states, they cooperate with the federal government. That's all they had to do. If you arrest someone who's here illegally and they've committed a crime, you hold them until ICE can come and pick them up, and then you deport them. That's really, really simple. It's not any more complicated than that. So I disagree with you, Robert. I appreciate the post, but I couldn't disagree with you more. This is actually very simple. I'm just turning down my ringer on my phone so I don't get interrupted, and so you don't get interrupted. Let's see. Marjorie Tatum, my girl, she posted, the mayor cast the deciding vote to kill the referendum that would have decided if we wanted to keep sanctuary city status. So he can't use this as an excuse. He knew Chicagoans would have voted no. And you're absolutely right, Marjorie. You're absolutely right. That is the biggest slap in the face. When you poll Chicagoans, they don't want Chicago to remain a sanctuary city, but he didn't even allow it to come to a vote so that you, the actual voters, the actual taxpayers in Chicago, could make up your own mind. I see we've got Jamal Green. He has joined us. Again, if you are in the room, do me a favor. Hit a like. If you don't like what I'm saying, hit a frowny face. Do whatever it is, but please interact. And if you want to support the David Seaton Show, like I said, you can see the in the crawl how you can do that. But I'm going to go ahead and add Jamal Green. Welcome to the show, brother.
What's up? What's up? How are you?
I am well, man. I'm so glad to have you here. Hey, look,
always happy to be on.
Yeah, I got to ask you this right off. I've seen your name now spelled 4 different ways. So please tell me how to spell your first name.
Just exactly how it is on the screen. J_MAL is Green. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, I just want to make sure that when we are interacting with you, or when I'm sending you, or when I post anything, I want to make sure I give you the dignity and the respect that you deserve by at least spelling your name correctly. We're talking. Yeah, we opened up talking about this issue going on with the woman who was recently the Loyola student who was
Yeah.
recently had her life taken by an illegal immigrant, and the person had already committed an offense, should have been deported based on that. But the Brandon Johnson administration is dead set on continuing this sanctuary city policy, and they won't even do the bare minimum, which is just when they arrest someone who is here illegally, hold them until ICE can get there and process them for deportation. What are your thoughts first off on this latest incident that happened, and what's your opinion about how Brandon Johnson is managing illegal aliens in the city of Chicago?
Well, I think I've been clear from the beginning that I think Brandon Johnson is the Venezuelan mayor. I mean, I think he should have been mayor of a city in Venezuela, because he has done everything that he could to, support. I mean, even when you think of the fact that this young girl was shot and killed by someone who should not have been here because he had an active warrant. Then you turn around days later, David, and now he's in front of an abolished ICE city vehicle because he wants to play politics. In the light of this happening, they didn't even say, you know what, Mayor, this may not be the best time to play these politics. Instead, he went on there and he said, well, I'm not going to let one tragedy stop our mission. Our mission to what? The federal government needs to be allowed to do their jobs. And the reality is that, the city of Chicago needs to amend the sanctuary city policy. I don't see us, because we're a very blue state and city. Do I see them getting rid of sanctuary city status? I don't. But is there a middle ground? At least there's a middle ground. And the middle ground is we will at least work with the federal government on people who are causing havoc in our city. Can we at least come to that middle ground, progressives? Can we at least come to the middle ground that if we have someone who is a rapist, who has hurt someone, who has done time or doing time currently, that we can allow ICE to come and get them when it's time without letting them back on the streets to allow them to kill an 18-year-old girl at the beach? I think that we at least need to have that common sense approach. David, this city is not moving in a common sense way. And I'm saddened for that girl, 18 years old, in the Christian club, had her whole life ahead of her. And this man who should not have been here, who I've seen pictures of him, out and about with others, and the fact that he robbed Macy's not even weeks from getting off of the bus and being in the city of Chicago, that should tell you that at some point we got to say, listen, we may have our disagreements with Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is right on this one, and that we must take immigration seriously. And as a person that's for legal immigration, as a person who has immigrants who've been working for me for years, as a person who has sponsored an immigrant who has also worked for me for years, who needed a sponsor to keep him in the country, I understand the process, and I believe in the process. We can't just have folks come over and push the process away. We take care of them, and they commit crimes, and we just allow them to wreak havoc. That's just not structure and order.
Well, and I agree with everything you just said, but here's the far scarier thing about Brandon Johnson. This is not just his approach as it pertains to immigration. We just had a teen takeover a couple of days ago. It's March.
Yeah.
I mean, usually these things happen in the summertime, but this just happened the other day.
Just showing you what we're about to have.
yeah. If it's happening in March, we know it's definitely going to happen. Let me go ahead and find this. Let's see. Okay, there it is. I want to make sure I bring up the right one. There it is, right here. let's go ahead and take a look at this, J Ball, and we'll come right back after this quick clip.
Well, the city of Chicago is ready this time when teens pack the loop again. Saquon is downtown to tell us what happened. Say.
Terrence, some big developments here at noon. We have now learned 8 total teenagers have now been arrested in connection to that large gathering here in the Loop last night. 7 of those teenagers between the ages of 13 and 16 were each charged with 1 misdemeanor count of reckless conduct, and one of them had a warrant out for his arrest. We've learned the 8th teenager who was arrested, a 16-year-old boy, was charged with 3 felony counts of aggravated assault of peace officers, 1 misdemeanor count of reckless conduct, and 1 citation for riding a bike on a sidewalk. Take a look at this video, though. It was shared with police officers on scene.
I'm pausing this right here just because part of that was from the Citizen app, and I don't know how YouTube will treat that. But let me play it from here, and we'll pick it up.
Got about 200-300 kids just running back and forth, jumping on cars, just fighting, taunting the police. And it got pretty bad to the point me and my team actually witnessed the little boy actually getting stumped out unconscious, and I had to render aid to him. We had to call an ambulance for this boy. It's frustrating.
Look at there, J-Mo. You see that crowd of kids right there that are stomping this kid, in the ground.
Frustrating. This is something, an occurrence that's been happening quite a lot for lately. We done had, this is the 3rd downtown area where the same events is happening, more shootings, kids getting shot. I actually had one of the boys that I mentor get shot at the last teen takeover. And so it's devastating.
This comes as the city council is still working to pass a revised curfew ordinance aimed at preventing teen takeovers. The new ordinance would allow Chicago police to give a 30-minute warning to disperse the crowd instead of the previously proposed 12 hours. And before issuing any citations, officers would be required to ask the person's age and why they are out.
Sorry, I had to turn my mic back on. When I see that and I hear this mayor, I hear a lot
David.
of people.
I can't hear none you saying. Me 2 seconds.
Hold on.
I don't know what that.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. Somebody let me know if you can hear me in the chat. I just want to make sure that my audio is still good. I see everything on my end, but just tell me if you can hear me in the chat really quickly. Can you hear me? Just say yes really quickly if you can still hear me in the chat. So J-Mal is going to come back in a moment. Again, these teen takeovers, this is happening in March. And this mayor, okay, he's back. Let me see. Let me make sure he's back.
All right, I'm ready.
Are you good? Okay,
Yes.
you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, that's what happens when you go live. So, but yeah, this mayor has been completely, in my opinion, intransigent about doing something serious to get these teen takeovers under control. I'll hear him say, oh, the kids on the west and the south sides, they don't have anything to do. So because they don't have anything to do in their neighborhoods, that gives them license to go downtown and create havoc and disrupt commerce and everything that they're doing. Where the parent, let's stop right there. What's your opinion of these teen takeovers?
Well, I don't know. I don't think you saw it today. I had a big op-ed in the Tribune about it. And it came out today. If you guys follow me, you probably seen it. And it talked about how we got to make sure that we protect our city and stop allowing these teen takeovers to cause chaos in our city, and that we need a structure and we need order. And it talked about the things that needs to happen because we can't just do one without the order. One without the other. When we talk about Brandon Johnson and he talks about kids having things to do, I agree with that, right? Kids need things to do. We should have rec centers open. We can have late night gyms. We can have arts programming. We can open up the schools throughout the day. We need community centers. There are definitely things that needs to happen to have spaces for youth. But what we also got to make sure that we have order first, right? And I think that you can't have one without the other. In my article, I talked about how we need to make sure that we're monitoring social media, And there are AI, there's AI technology that will help us be able to pinpoint when folks are creating this disruption on the internet and who it's coming from, and be able to monitor where it's happening. We need rapid response teams. We need to be monitoring the transit authority and seeing where they're coming off. We need to be trying to deter these things from happening before they happen. We also need to make sure that we are penalizing and holding accountable not just the young people, but we got to hold accountable the parents as well, right? And make sure that the parents have a role in this and that it reaches their doorstep. And if it continues to happen, penalize the parents. And if there are parents that say, because I had a parent that commented today, and they say, "Well, J-Mar, what if I just got a knucklehead teen and I need some help?" And I say, you know what? You're right, right? And then the city should be able to step in at that point, right? And say, okay, well, here's some programs that we can mandate them to. But what needs to happen is we still have to hold these young people accountable, the parents accountable. We need to lock down corridors downtown in certain thriving areas of downtown that we want to protect. Those certain corridors they cannot go into. We need to make sure that we're enacting curfews at a certain time. So we can't just do one thing without the other. We got to have a full structure of how we protect our city's assets and how we operate in this city. Teens cannot just come downtown and take over downtown. This is the door to Chicago. This is the tourism. This is where how our city thrives. And we can't just let them come and take it over and make it their playground. We gotta have the alternatives, but we also got to make sure that when you're coming downtown in order.
Let me share a personal story with you. When I was 13 years old, when I was a freshman in high school, when I was a freshman, all of my friends with whom I hung out were juniors and seniors. And we went downtown one time, down by Buckingham Fountain, and it was really common for teenagers. This is back in the late 80s. It was really common for teenagers to be downtown, but there weren't any teen takeovers. There weren't shootings. There weren't things like that. But that first time that I went downtown, police officer approached us and said, "Hey, show me your ID." And the only ID I had at 13 years old was my school ID. So you know what happened to me? I got thrown into the paddy wagon, and got detained. Had to call my mother, and there was, there were males and females in that group who were under 16 who got arrested. And my mother, so she came down there and picked me up. And then I remember maybe 6 months later, I was calling from school, and I jokingly said, "Hey, Mom, I got arrested." You know what she did? She hung up the phone. And then when I called her back, I said, "Mom, why'd you hang up the phone?" She said, "Hey, if you want to stay in jail, then stay in jail, but I'm not coming to get you." That's the type of
that's how my mama was.
Right. That's the type of parenting that's lacking today. And then you have an enabler in Brandon Johnson who wants to blame everything and everyone else. Matter of fact, everybody who's in the room, put in the chat, if you got arrested as a teenager, what would your mother and father do to you? And that's the type of cultural degradation that has happened to our communities, where we want to blame racism, we want to blame socioeconomics, we want to blame lack of resources. There are plenty of poor people in enclaves throughout the world that just because they lack resources doesn't mean you automatically go to crime. I hate that logic that's put out there.
Yeah. No, we got to have accountability for how we operate, and like you said, I come from the hood. I used to get in trouble in school a lot. My parents was no joke. My mom was when I used to get in trouble in school, and if my mom came up to the school or she like put her hands on me, and they'd be like, "Ma'am, you can't do that here." She'd be like, "Well, y'all take them then." Like their parents are different. Like, all right, if I can't discipline my kid, then y'all can have them. And they're like, "No, we don't want them. You keep your kid with them. Let me do what I want to do to my kid." It's a different generation, and I think I'm very even with my boys, I'm very strict and structured with minds, and we know the children who have broken, family structures, and essentially what's happening is that with this generation that we have now, you have majority single mothers who are doing the brunt of the work. The lack of male leadership in these families is lacking, and then even in those, even there's a percentage of those mothers who are friends are more friends with these kids because they don't have the structure of the male. So there's a lot of dynamics happening culturally. And that's why I always talk about we got to have a cultural reset in how we operate in our communities, because what's happening and how we're raising our children and how we operating with each other is not giving us the best results going forward. And so with these young people, yeah, they need a lot of support. But let me say that we got to also have order in this city. And as the leader and the helm of the city of Chicago, your job is to protect all of Chicago. That's not anti-youth. That's being pro this city. That means that there are Black, white, Asian, everybody else who want to enjoy downtown, who wants to enjoy, the resources that we have to offer in our city. And we can't let that be taken over by a bunch of unruly teens who don't care, about downtown. We can't.
And let me just say this to the individuals who are pro Brandon Johnson's approach, or maybe, kind of vacillating. There's only two options. Either you're going to be raised by parents who love you, or you're going to be raised by life, and life don't give a damn about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you go out there as an adult and you commit an offense, you can't go before the court and say, oh, well, my parents didn't love me and they didn't raise me. Nobody cares. You go out there and you commit an offense as an adult. And we have to, I don't know how we're going to do this, Jamal, but somewhere we need to reinforce this idea that children have to be disciplined so they learn self-discipline. I think we've gotten to the point in our culture where we look at discipline like that's a bad thing. But if you don't discipline your children, they are going to lack self-discipline. And then when they become adults, or in the case of these kids were between 13 and 16 years old. And one of them had a warrant. What are we doing?
Yeah. No, you're totally correct. It really hurts me to see our young people in the position that they're in culturally in this city. And that's why at the helm of it, you got to have somebody that understands that and figure out ways to be able to support these neighborhoods and support these families, to be able to hold accountable these young people, offer pathways, offer opportunities, but most importantly, let these young people understand that even though that we offer opportunity, that doesn't mean that we're not going to hold you accountable if you squander it. And they have to have that. This is what I teach. I got 3 boys, so I have to teach that with boys, three rough boys. And every summer we take over 60 young boys in the city of Chicago to camp out of town for over a week. And that's what we teach. We teach, principles and who we need to be as men, and how we operate in our households, how we operate in our communities. We teach accountability, and we also teach expression and for them to be vulnerable and be able to talk about how they feel. But most importantly, we teach how our culture should operate as young men. And that's what we do in the summers with young boys. And we just need more of that. And we just need more really male leadership, David. Truly what's happening is in our communities, especially if you look at other cultures, we're probably the only culture where Black women are doing the brunt of everything and are leading the culture. It's gonna take for Black men to really step up and bring some structure to these neighborhoods and households. And that's what I want to see going forward, because that is the pathway to stabilize in our communities.
I 100% agree. We do have a dearth of Black leadership, but you mentioned something a moment ago. You mentioned public transit, and it just so happened
Yep.
that I had that lined up. Let me go ahead and share this really quickly. We're going to talk about this on the other side because this is getting absolutely ridiculous. Let me make sure I've got the right clip. It shows up kind of weird on StreamYard sometimes. So let me go ahead and share this one. No, that's not it. It is right here. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? It's not that one. I'm gonna find it, but this is the clip that I found was just talking about something that happened very recently. I think this one is it. Let's go here.
Hey guys, yeah, good morning to you. It was a violent and deadly night on the city's south side. We know 3 victims are currently here at University of Chicago Hospital being treated for their injuries as we speak. Officers say everything started at around 10:45 last night when a 19-year-old man and a 22-year-old woman were shot near a gas station in the Inglewood neighborhood on South Halstead. Police say it is possible this started as a physical altercation. Thankfully, both victims are expected to be okay. Then, just less than an hour later, officers responded to another call about 3 miles north from that Inglewood shooting on South Calumet. We've learned 2 men were shot and killed by a group of 5 unknown men. Police say it is unclear how many of those men were armed and which one is responsible for actually pulling the trigger. They also say all of them took off running towards 79th Street. And then at around 1:30 this morning, police say a verbal altercation on the CTA Red Line at West 47th Street led to 2 men being stabbed in the neck by an unknown man. Thankfully, those victims are also expected to recover. But this all comes, guys, as Mayor Brandon Johnson has been in some hot water lately over the recent firings of his staff, specifically the ones who have big roles in keeping Chicagoans safe. The mayor talked about his plan to keep safety at top of mind, especially with summer just around the corner.
I have absolutely zero confidence in Brandon Johnson. If he can't keep the city safe in March, it just so happens that we've had some uncharacteristically warm weather this March. But you just saw that, just 3 incidents back to back, in Inglewood. But more importantly, on public transit, people are being stabbed, set on fire, shot. You can't even depend on public transportation just to go to work, go to school. And this mayor treats everything like it's a one-off, like it's just an aberration, instead of leaning into law and order. If you don't have law and order, you can't have anything else. What say you?
Well, I think that definitely has to be a balance, right? And when he says what he says, the problem is that there's no true power attached to the things that he's saying. Like, for example, okay, yes, we need some mental health support for folks that are on the trains, but we also got to make sure that we're enforcing it in a way where we're getting them off of the trains from not having all of these crazy things happening on the trains, right? Or yes, we have these teens downtown, or these teens jumping on people on the trains all night. People are not talking about that a lot. Every day see a lot of my friends are the CTA managers or supervisors, and that's all they talk about is the train. The teens take over the trains at night, and they're jumping on people. They're taking people's phones, etc. Like, there's no true accountability.
Stop right there. I'm glad you said that. I remember when Brandon Johnson, you know what the most attention that he paid to CTA, where he spent a lot of money and marketing dollars, it was around smoking on trains. He wanted to do this big push to get people to stop smoking on trains. Meanwhile, people are getting shot and stabbed and set on fire and burned and pushed onto the tracks. And he will come out and say, "Oh yeah, public transit is up. We've had more riders this year." This is something. Here's the irony of what he's doing. In trying to not have a heavy law and order approach in the very neighborhoods that need it the most, he is unintentionally, or perhaps even intentionally, he's creating an environment where would-be criminals know there are no consequences or repercussions for their actions. So why change?
Yeah,
I'm not going to. If I know that I'm not going to get arrested, But if I do get arrested, I'm going to get a slap on the wrist. And then if I do get a court date, they're just going to use the Safety Act and just let me go. Then, what do we do? And this all comes down to the direction and the trajectory of Chicago right now is a function of the ideology of one man, Brandon Johnson.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, CTA is a mobile homeless shelter riddled with crime. I feel sorry for the people that like truly have to take it every day and experience what they're experiencing, especially on the red line. It's not okay. I hear the stories each and every day. I see it on video each and every day. And I think let's also understand, David, that there is no president of CTA. There's been an interim president of CTA for a long time, for over a year, maybe almost two. There's also an interim president of CHA in which they had to just appoint someone because he wanted to appoint Walter Burnett, and they said he wasn't qualified. They're finally appointing the lady who's been the interim of CPS as a superintendent, and they're finally appointing her. We have no board chair, zoning board chair, zoning and the zoning committee. Like there is a lot of vacancy in regards to positions where people who are should be experts of this field are selected to be able to carry out the duties of that system. And CTA is one of them. CTA does not have a permanent leader right now. And when you have not chosen someone that you trust who can clean CTA up, well, you're basically just saying, hey, well, it is what it is. We can't operate like that in the city. This is a $28 billion a year enterprise in which this city is a business. People have to understand. And I think that's the root of a lot of this, David, is that while we have social justice pieces, while we can say, well, we need to help the poor, we need to help teenagers, we need to help, the communities in these ways. I agree with all of that. But we also got to understand that this city is a corporation. It is a business. And that means that every entity that's a part of that business needs to run efficiently. So if CTA is riddled with folks who are killing folks, burning folks, who have mental health issues, who are homeless. You got half of the trains at night full of homeless people that are just sleeping on the train. If you have a low quality of ridership on CTA, then you have people who are less likely to ride CTA. If you have in CPS vacant, majority of these schools are vacant. The education is terrible. The books outdated. There's no, everybody's stealing all the money in CPS, really, in the budget. Like, what do you have? You have people who don't want to send their kids to CPS, so the vacancies level will decrease. So the thing is that we have to understand that we are running a $28 billion business. So every part of the entity needs to run efficiently so that people can look at this and say, I want to send my kids to CPS. I want to take the bus and the train. I want to go downtown. I want to go to the park district. If people are not saying that, then we're going to be filling deficits every year. Because while we should be increasing revenue, we're decreasing because the quality of life in this city is just that bad.
And he wants to keep raising taxes. Like he was trying to push for that tax on corporations, that head tax. The reason why he keeps needing to raise taxes is to the quality of life issue to which you just referred. People keep leaving the city. So your tax base is shrinking. So you have to tax the people who remain more, or you've got to cut spending, but he's not going to ever cut spending. But to the point you just mentioned a moment ago, the guy Burnett, who he was trying to get to be in charge of CHA, what was his first name again?
Walter Burnett.
I was saying Willie in my head. I remember him saying that Walter Burnett's qualification was that he grew up in CHA housing. That's how obtuse this mayor is that you would say, because you grew up in the projects, that qualifies you to run the entire apparatus.
No, you got to be a manager. They got to be a manager. And David, when we talk about the quality, because I want people to understand this about the quality of life, David, is that when we running people out of the city, You're running the middle class out. You're running people who have means to pay the taxes. And what's happening, David, is there's an influx of folks who are dependent that will be here. But you cannot run this city off of dependent people. You have to have a middle class. You have to have folks who are going to work every day, who are making 100 grand, 150 grand, and they are buying a home here, raising their family here, paying taxes here, buying, shopping at local businesses here, going downtown. If you have those people say, you know what, I'm finna go over to Indiana. You know what? I'm finna move down south. I'm finna move
Right.
to Florida. If you have those people, the more that happens each and every day, because those are people who have the means to do it. The people that don't have the means to do it will stay, but those people that are staying are more a dependent society because they have not gotten to a place where they're middle class. So if you have a majority of those people, and that's what the socialism does. When you look at what happened in Venezuela, I can go down the line on that. A piece of that was that, right? So you can have socialism where you are giving away a lot of things to a dependent society, but guess what? When you run out of money, or if you're not invested well, or you don't have a middle class stabilizer, then everybody goes bankrupt. And so, like, we can't be that. This is a business. You can't go to businesses and say, I want to get a head tax and this tax and this tax, because what those businesses going to say, they have the means to get up and go next door to Indiana. And you want them to say, no, I want to invest in Chicago. You want people who have the means and have good jobs and good businesses to say, I want to invest in Chicago, because that's the only way we can grow this city. Right now, we're not growing, David. We're not building houses. We give away, 3,500 to 4,000 permits to build single family residences a year. When you got folks, places like Austin, Texas, and San Antonio, they're building 20,000, 30,000 units a year, and we're not giving out 4,000 permits in the third largest city in the country. What does that say? That says that we're not growing with 54,000 vacant lots. What does that say? We're not running the business well,
Right.
and
But
that is the
here's
problem
the
with the
point.
city.
Here's the point, though. Here's why we're not running the business well. I have to share this. I really do. I went back. I have a LinkedIn page on my, and I'm sure, and I think you're on LinkedIn too, right, Jamal?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So I went back, and when you have a certain level of subscription on LinkedIn, whenever someone goes and they look at your LinkedIn page, they can see who's looking at it. And I went back and I looked at Brandon Johnson. He has his entire career on LinkedIn, like most people do. And if you look at the jobs that he's had, in 2003, he was a director of constituent services, so public sector job. Then he was chief of staff of the 78th district, public sector job. Yep. Then he was a teacher for 10 years. Then he was commissioner.
Hold on, wait. Let's make clear, because that's some bullshit BS. I ain't gonna curse. He was a teacher for 2 years, but if him taking a leave of absence to work for the teachers union for 10 years mean that he was a teacher? Because right now that means that he's still saying he's a teacher, because he's on leave of absence. He has not left being a teacher, but he only was in the classroom for 2 years. I just want to make that clear.
No, you're absolutely right. But then after being a teacher, he was a commissioner for the first district, and now he's mayor. My point is that Brandon Johnson has never held a private sector job. Yeah. He's never held a job where he had to be responsible for the profit and loss of that. He's always worked in the public sector where he could just spend someone else's money. That's why his only solution to everything is raise taxes and the rich should pay their fair share. He uses all these platitudes to try and emotionally manipulate people, but he does not have the experience to run the third largest city in the country. And that's why I always implore people, do not make your decision about electing someone based on their skin color. That is the most ignorant way to choose your leader. Hey, I've had you for a minute. I was gonna, if you can still hang out, I've got a surprise guest that's coming on, but I don't want to be respectful of your time. If you can hang out a little bit longer, then great.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And I'm look. She's having an issue with her device connection, so I'm gonna let her reconnect real quick. And in the meantime, let me read a couple of these comments. Yeah, it looks like TT NS4YT. She just posted that Christian Mitchell told me to leave then after telling them Illinois needs to be more competitive. Chicago is not competitive right now. The only thing they know how to do is tax, and just the actual quality of life in Chicago, especially if you're a poor person, especially if you are Black or Latino, you are exposed to danger, lack of opportunity. You're probably, a disproportionately high percentage of the people in those ethnicities don't have the best access or the best education. They're stuck. And to your point, rich people can get up and move. Their money allows them to be mobile. If you're someone, to your point, who makes $150,000 and you've got a work from home job, then you can go anywhere. You're not tethered to Illinois or Chicago.
Yep. And something happened to your family or your house, guess what you're gonna do? I'm out of here. And I see it happening all the time. Like people with means, they get fed up and they leave. And I have friends. I was on the phone with one of my close friends today who she is one of the top producing realtors in the city. She's I think turned 30 this year. She's about to turn 30 years old, but married to a police officer and has 2 children. And so they make a lot of money. They own 10 doors, so they own several buildings. And they were able to do this in their young life. And they're like, Jamal, whatever happens in 2027 is the decision for us. Because if somebody like Brandon Johnson or anybody like him gets in, we're out of here. There's no point for us who have the means, who makes hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, to stay here and subject our children to the quality of life of this city. And so I'm the one that be like, look, just give it a chance. I think it's going to turn around. This is what I tell my friends. And they like, Jamal, we tired of hearing that. It's time for us to go. We have to be a city where people say, I want to stay here. Even if I make, 100,000, 200, 300,000, like I want to stay here, not I want to leave. And that's the city that we deserve.
Let me go ahead and introduce our special surprise guest this evening. She is known to all of you on WVON. You've seen her on Fox News. She actually ran for office in the primary, and she is joining us tonight. And that is Ms. Rae Easley. How are you?
Hey, David. Hey, Jamal.
Rae, how are you?
I am wonderful this evening. Happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday.
Absolutely. We're talking about Brandon Johnson.
I was listening.
Everyone has an opinion, I think, on Brandon Johnson, and most people. Well, let me stop. Tell me, Rae, if you had to give Brandon Johnson a grade, A, B, C, D, F, what would that grade be? Why? And do you think he's going to get reelected?
So I would give him a D, and I would give him a D because he is at least trying. We give Fs to people who are not trying at all or not trying to do better. I think that Brandon can see the writing on the wall, and now he's trying to pivot based on the meetings that I'm hearing him have, but it's too late. You already messed up the money. Brandon is definitely not going to get reelected. I think that we really have to pay attention to the polls. He had a 6% approval rating at one time, and he messed up the money. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what this has always been about, at least for me as a finance person. I've been down there counting the money. The first time I went to City Hall was to address the fact that $51 million of opioid settlement money was actually reallocated to the illegals. And there are people in my community who need to go to rehab. So I'm really paying attention to the money. I think that Brandon made a lot of deals before he got in office, even though if you read his campaign website, which I did multiple times on Black Excellence Hour, a show for people with high self-esteem. And I told the people, if you have a social security number, Brandon has nothing for you. If you have a birth certificate, Brandon has nothing for you because tab after tab after tab after tab after tab all stated that he was going to focus on the immigrant population. And so we were well aware of what happened. So when all these people talk about Brandon, and I'm not here to make any excuses again, I am the one who blew the whistle. We need ICE here. We need more security on the streets. We need to bring in federal prosecutors to not only help us solve cold cases and dismantle criminal organizations, but we need them to go on LaSalle as well. Okay, so we need lots of federal help. However, I think that Brandon was very obtuse and arrogant not to take that help. I think that it was very short-sighted of him to be like, oh, I don't want to talk to the president. I'm not doing that. Like, what? This is the president of the United States of America. So for that reason, I don't think he's going to win. And I'm just interested to see what the new crop is going to bring to us.
All excellent points. Excellent points. All. Let me play this clip really quickly, but I want to get both of you to respond to this because you mentioned how his management. He just recently fired his two top safety officials, his deputy mayor of public safety and the other CVI person who was working in his administration. Let me find that Chicago mayor. There it is. No, that's the other one because I want to talk about that one too. It is. Let's see. Yep, here we go. I want to share this.
Mayor Johnson is addressing the recent firings of two of his top public safety aides. The responses come after Fox 32 interviewed former deputy mayor for public safety, Garien Gatewood, and his top lieutenant, Manny Whitfield. Both surprisingly were fired late last week. Paris is joining us now with more on this. And how is the mayor responding? He sent you a statement yesterday, right?
Well, we spoke with his spokesperson yesterday, but today is the first time that he held a news conference since these firings happened on Thursday, and he faced a lot of questions. And let's get folks up to speed. Garien Gatewood was the deputy mayor for public safety. His number two, Manny Whitfield, he was the director of violence prevention. Both of them surprisingly fired on Thursday, despite historic drops in violent crime. They came to Fox 32 and they listed some of the things that they wanted to get off their chest about the mayor's office. They claimed that there was a hostile work environment on behalf of the mayor and his senior leadership team. They claimed there was a troubled employee in that department, that the mayor and his senior leadership team were protecting, and perhaps these firings were retaliation for that. And then they also claimed a culture of hostility toward law enforcement, which is something that they vehemently disagreed with. So on that last issue, I asked the mayor, given the fact that mayor's job is to protect the city, keep it safe, and show up for fallen service members, why would his top two deputies say that?
And I don't really care about his answer on that, but we do know that before Brandon Johnson even started running for mayor, he was on WCPT and he was endorsing the defund. He was endorsing. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay. He was endorsing the defund the police
I don't hear anything.
Narrative.
It's okay. I'll just go out and come back. One moment.
No problem. So we know Brandon Johnson is anti-law enforcement. He talked about defunding the police. We know that that's the case. So when he is doing what he's doing, and when he's making these statements, when he touts, oh, this has been the safest summer in 60 years, and then you fire the two people whose portfolio it was to actually get that result. What does that say about Brandon Johnson?
Well, I definitely think there was some personal stuff that happened in City Hall that we don't know about. Garien Gatewood, we had words not too long ago, and his view was that I needed to focus in on his work and not Brandon Johnson, and I let him know that Brandon Johnson is your boss, so everything that he does is a reflection of you. And he felt like he can separate that. And then 6 weeks later, he was fired by who I told him was his boss. So he quickly understood how politics run in this city. His kids go to school with my children as well, so I see him frequently. And I think that he is going to be a thorn in the mayor's side from what I'm hearing. about what's to come. But the mayor is not a manager. Let's just be clear. The mayor is not a manager. He's never been one. He's never had a lemonade stand. So you can't expect him to be a good manager. The mayor was in this house in the next room when he came to me and asked for help. And I asked him, who do you have to help you manage the city? Because you're not a manager. And he said, well, I don't have anyone yet. I'm going to work with the coalition and I'm going to figure it out. I said, Brandon, you can't just walk in City Hall and you don't have anyone that can help you run the city. Who do you have? Who do you trust then? Who do you trust, Mayor? And Brandon said, the only person that I trust is Jason Lee. And I knew with that statement, we were doomed, okay? Because you cannot take over a $28 billion enterprise and you don't have people that know how to manage departments that are going to be loyal to you, that you know and have worked with over time. And so this was one of those times where you had a new mayor come in, and for 2 years, most of the holdovers were from Lori still. Most of the jobs were still filled by Lori's people because Brandon did not walk in with his own team because he is not a manager and he didn't even know how to fire them. So you had Arwadi sitting in the wings.
J-Mal, they had 5-year contracts. Before Lori left, she gave everybody a contract because she really thought that she was going to win. And so when he came in, he had to figure out how to legally break all of those contracts in order to fire those people. So, I want to get that straight. And that's part of the problem as well in Brandon. Like I said, I'm not here to defend Brandon, okay? Brandon messed up the money. However, we got to look at this from a truly factual standpoint. Brandon was stuck with Lori's staff, okay? When he got there, he said, I want to... Right,
that's
so
incorrect.
When he had to
That's
break those
incorrect.
contracts with the city, that was a legal process. And once they got through those processes, those people started to get out the way. Now, when it comes to Garien Gatewood, he came to Armiston Park and was extremely rude to us. Extremely gaslighting, extremely disrespectful, extremely dismissive. Okay, this is a meeting that I've never seen occur in my life. Even Alderman Talaferro said that he had never seen anything like this. 1,000 people came to the park district, to this little bitty gym, and said, we don't want a migrant shelter. And Mr. Gatewood was sent by the city to gaslight us and to be disrespectful to us. And I actually wrote the city and said, you all need to talk to this young man because his training is not where it needs to be when it comes to dealing with the public. So knowing that our interactions with him have not been the best, your interactions with him have not been the best, we can conclude that's something that this young man got to be trained on when dealing with the public. Now, and also, I don't know if people have seen this, but there's a documentary going on right now, going pretty viral, at least on Twitter. And it's about the CVI money, which is the Community Violence Investment.
Interrupters.
Interrupter, thank you, I couldn't think of the I. Interrupters. And they're stating that people have now done audits. And there's this one guy, his family is actually like the major benefactor, major donor of this. And they were talking about how they spent $1 billion here in the city of Chicago. They figured out that this money is going to gangbangers, for lack of a better word, not their words, not mine. But it's going to these guys, and they're essentially being paid not to commit crimes. And then JB Pritzker, because a lot of people talk about Brandon, but nobody wants to talk about JB. I guess his name is Bruno, okay? Because we don't talk about JB. But JB is the one that's funding and pushing all of this stuff. Barack Obama sent Arnie Duncan here to get over the community violence interrupters and partage this money. So what they do is, because they are the party of slavery, friends, let's break down the plantation. So you got Massa. Massa is like Arnie Duncan, the man who comes with the money. Then you have the overseers. The overseers act as these organizations who go and show their teeth to these people in order to get the money, and then they sprinkle it down on the people on the field. And sometimes there are issues between the field and the overseer, and that's when real problems occur. But the people on the field...
Hold on one second, P-Rex. Hold on one second, P-Rex. I know J-Mal wanted to respond.
Well, real quick, because I do got to catch a flight. But what I do want to say my only thing is there I did see the viral clip. I wasn't going to touch on that. The response when we were talking about the managing is the only job that had a contract on it was the former superintendent of public schools. Most of all of the appointments, as I was senior advisor for Lori for a year and a half, most of those appointments are at will appointments. So a lot of those people that he had in position were sitting waiting to be fired, and they were sitting there doing nothing for over a year until he decided, all right, well, now I want to fire them. So that just goes back to the management style of Brandon Johnson. He really doesn't have one. Secondly, I did, see the CBI documentary, which $1 billion has been spent in CBI, and I think that is definitely a broader conversation that a lot of people need to have. But that once again, what's going to happen is they're going to run from it because this is not a conversation where there's not somebody that folks know that are getting paid in this industry. The CVI programs are $1 billion industry, and there are people all over the communities that are benefiting from it. So the media is going to run away from this story. Trust me.
No, they're not. I don't think so at all. I think it's picking up lots of steam. This has been up for
The mainstream
a
media, Chicago's mainstream media.
Because this is I'm talking about not black people are saying this. This is major white influencers who are showing this. Because this is actually a shot against the governor, and he has entered the presidential race. So yes, this is definitely going mainstream. And what they're saying is, yes, this is $1 billion industry, but the reduction in crime is due to the fact that the Chicago police have a higher clearance rate and that we have built a stronger force. And that's true if you look at it just data-wise, statistically. And what I'm saying is, based on the trends, because of course, all of us know somebody getting a check. Everybody knows how this goes. However, we have, as a capitalist, I believe that all those men who are working those CBI programs need to be standing on the factory line. They cannot take those CBI payments and take those receipts and take it to the bank to get a loan because that's untaxed money. They need pay stubs, real live pay stubs to go to the bank and buy buildings just like our granddaddies did. The reason that Chicago is fading down is not because people want to leave. It's because we got too many vacant lots. They tore down people's houses. When we talk about CPS, I love CPS. It's the best thing that ever happened. My people love CPS. And my best friend told me, as soon as you push that baby out, you take a nap and you call Skinner Elementary and put her on the waiting list for the kindergarten. So it works. It works, and we have to again look bigger than what we've seen. Again, as you know, David, I'm a very factual, regimented type of person.
Yeah. Hold on one second, P-Ray. Hold on one second. J-Mal, you said you needed to jump because you got to catch a plane, right?
Yes. But thank you so much, David. Great to see P-Ray. I want to give her time. And thank you so much for having me as always, David.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Let's do this again real soon because we have to hold Brandon Johnson's feet to the fire.
100%, always.
All right, my friend, I will see you soon. All right, so now it's just you and me.
Hey, love. Okay, yeah, so as I was saying, this is all state mismanagement. State. So yes, Brandon is bogus, okay? When I say Brandon bogus, Brandon is bogus to the core. Yes, dead wrong. I have no excuses to make for Brandon. And West Side people stick together. I always tap him on the shoulder a little bit. As I tell him all the time when I see him, I boo you when you wrong, I clap for you when you right. I don't hate the man, per se. I could be 50 cents short at Pete's and he might have to give me 50 cents. Or I might be stuck in the snow and he might come by and push me out the snow because we live 6 blocks from each other. And again, we stick together. Now, with that being said, he's not going to win. JB Pritzker is the problem. JB Pritzker, Arnie Duncan, this whole Obama clan that came to the state and removed the old Democrat Party, the people who were like the Danny Davises, the Emil Jones, the Michael Scotts, the twins. What were the twins' names? They were old man twins. They were in the south suburbs.
Yeah.
Beavers. William Beavers. You know what I'm talking about? The Beavers twins?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes. So you had that type of leadership. Harold Washington, right? So that vibe of blackness in the Democratic Party. Barack Obama comes to town, and then they completely wipe out that entire party, okay? They send Jesse Jackson Jr. to jail. That's the first thing. So they completely dismantled that South Side move, the power frequency. Then they imported all of these socialists to the communities via all of these weird programs in the school, like remember Teach for America and all those little where you could just grab somebody from any university in the country and park them in the school and say 6 weeks of training, now go teach the children. So that started our literacy decline. That was Common Core, okay, the Common Core era. So again, all of this is Barack Obama. We got the subprime crisis that occurred, you know, when they were putting the red X's on the buildings and tearing them down. Barack Obama and that administration had the option to allow the people to keep the houses because Senate hearings uncovered that the banks purposely preyed on us and gave us bogus loans. So they forgave the loans for them doing their crime and still took our houses and then tore them all down. That's the problem, David. And Barack Obama and this new Democratic Party are the ones who introduced them because their goal has been to systemically remove us out the city. So now, but JB is the one funding and controlling it. He was paying for people's campaign out of his private trust. We don't know how much money he got in the trust. So he has the ability to pay people. We know that he's doubled the salaries of his executive staff. So if I'm making $60,000 or $80,000 and I work in the executive office, I get paid by the state, and then JB Pritzker pays me $80,000 more. So he's not going to have the same type of dissension that Brandon is having at City Hall because he has a financial incentive to give to people to be loyal. This is all a plantation, you know, and JB is massa. So when we talk about what's happening in this city, make sure we talk about JB. JB is the one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's let me take a break really quickly for our sponsor. We're being sponsored this evening by Maytag Laundry. Let me go ahead and play this for you, everybody.
Yeah.
So shout out to Maytag Laundry for sponsoring this show tonight. If you are a business out there, if you're a restaurant, if you're a bar, if you're a hospital, if you're a hotel, and you are looking for a laundry partner, you can reach out to Maytag Laundry at www.maytaglaundryservice.com. And if you have a business and you want to sponsor an episode of the David Seaton Show, you can email our team at thedavidseatonshow@gmail.com, and we will respond to all solicitations. And again, we want to partner with you and help grow this community. And then again, for all of you who are watching who want to support this show financially, you can make contributions via Super Chats via YouTube. You can support the David Seaton Show at DA Seaton through Venmo, and finally Cash App. That's $, the David Seaton Show. And again, we appreciate you for supporting us because we want to continue to bring dynamic people like Jamal and Patricia and have these conversations that we need to have. Because like I said, I'm not unsympathetic to your theory about JB Pritzker and how he is certainly using his money to influence what's going on in the state of Illinois. But I'm a person who believes the local politics are what's most important. And Brandon Johnson has dropped the ball at every single turn. Now you had the entire restaurant community, because we talked about the CTA, we talked about the violence, we talked about immigration before you joined us, but you just had the entire restaurant community go to him and say, hey, if you go through with this next raise for minimum wage tipped workers, we are going to have to either start laying people off, firing people, or closing businesses. He vetoed that tipped wage that's supposed to go into effect in July. Let me let you take a quick look at that, And because again, this is really important because he can't even manage he can't manage immigration. He can't manage crime. He can't manage what's going on in CTA. He can't even manage the country, or I'm sorry, the city from an economic point of view because he doesn't know what he's doing. Take a look at this.
Johnson, again, using his veto pen today. This time he's defying the city council over wages for tipped workers. Philly Gen political editor Taman Bradley is joining us now with that story. Taman.
Hey, Lourdes, it was last Wednesday, a 30-18 vote. City Council froze wage increases for tipped workers. Voters say they heard directly from business owners that they're having a hard time. Mayor Johnson used his authority to overrule the council.
All right, Mayor. Yes, yes.
With a stroke of his veto pen, Mayor Johnson saved one of his signature agenda wins.
Supporting local businesses and paying workers fair wages can go hand in hand.
For now, a 2023 ordinance to gradually eliminate sub-minimum wage for tipped workers will remain in effect. The mayor's veto overrides a city council vote last week to pause the raise for workers.
I want every worker in the city to hear me and to hear me clearly. As long as I'm mayor of this great city, the working people in this city will always have a fighter on the 5th floor in Brandon Johnson.
I can't hear you again. Hold on. It's like when you go pull up a video and you come back, I can't hear you. Give me one moment. Nothing. Hold on. I'm so sorry. It's like the sound went away.
Oh, that was my sound. Okay. P. Rae was having some difficulty, so she's coming back in. And so, but what I was saying is Brandon Johnson doesn't understand that wages are about supply and demand. If you go apply for a job and say, hey, I'm married and I've got 5 kids and I've got a mortgage and I've got a boat payment, but you're applying for a job as the cashier at McDonald's, they're not going to give you a payment package based on your needs. It's based on the skills that you have. And what he doesn't understand, and this is what restaurants have been saying already, restaurants have been closing in Chicago because of this tipped wage that keeps creeping up. If you're making $10 an hour and you get 40 hours a week, and then they raise the minimum wage to $20, all they're going to do is cut your hours from 40 hours a week to $200 a week. So as an employer, your cost is still that $400. If you're getting $10 at 40 hours, that's $400. If I cut you from 40 to 20 hours at $20 a week, you're still only making $400 because the mayor and whatever city ordinance that he passes, he can't force employers to make sure they keep paying you and giving you that 40-hour availability of work at that higher wage. That's a decision that's made at the business owner level. But again, remember, we just talked about his resume on LinkedIn. He's never run a privately owned business. He's never run an actual profit and loss. All he's ever done is either work for someone in the public sector, be a teacher in an elementary school where he was teaching 4th grade social studies. I still don't understand how the 3rd largest city in the country let a 4th grade social studies teacher be the executive of the 3rd largest city in the country that has a multi-billion-dollar budget. This man has never managed a billion-dollar budget. His water bill was behind when he was running for mayor. So if he can't run his own business, Is that, wait, I'm getting a little bit of feedback right there.
Hey, okay, cool. I was like, cause you see me? Yeah,
Okay.
so Brandon is a socialist. That's what everybody got to understand, okay? That's why, like, I'm mad at Brandon, or not mad, that's the wrong word. I'm deeply disappointed in Brandon, okay? Number one, it's a slight to the West Side, because now it's always going to be that mayor from the West Side, from the Austin community. This is what he did. So now this is a slight on everybody's brand, okay? We didn't ask for that. But beyond that, we also have to remember that during that mayoral campaign, people were not voting for Brandon. They were voting against Paul Vallis. Why aren't we looking at him as a villain in this story too? Because I share this all the time with Paul Vallis. I know he is sick of me on Twitter. But whenever he talks about Brandon Johnson, I tell him, and what role did you play in it? Because you knew that anybody with a kindergarten, middle school, or high school diploma signed by Paul Vallis was not voting for Paul Vallis. You fired the lunch ladies. You fired the janitors. You closed down schools. You were the one who started to slowly introduce this charter concept into the programs. Remember the turnaround schools? Remember, he called the principals boneheads. That is when there was a shakeup in CPS, because Paul Vallis's main goal throughout his whole career in municipal administration has been to trim pension obligations. So when he came to CPS, what did he do? He privatized some of the teachers through the charters. But then he also privatized the lunch ladies, and he privatized the janitors. Now they work for a vendor that works with CPS rather than working for CPS directly. And now CPS does not owe those people a pension. Okay. He did the same thing down in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. They're the only school district that's 100% charters. Why? Because he went down there and cut off all the teacher pensions in New Orleans. Then he went to Philly. Then I think he went to some little small place in Delaware and did it too. So I'm like, people who know that Paul Vallis, we ain't gonna vote for you. So it was the ego of Paul Vallis that got us in this situation, because in the first go round of voting, Brandon got 0% of the wards. None, no black wards. Lori won all the black wards. So then we get to the runoff, and we got Paul Vallis, who is a literal documented person who has caused our community harm, against Brandon Johnson, a jolly good guy with a little haircut with his kids and his wife from the West Side. Okay, let's give his brother a chance. So we gotta, I'm always big on grading grace, David. So yeah, Brandon is bogus, but we gotta talk about how Paul Vallis gotta get off the field.
Well, again, I look at Paul Vallis. When it came down to Paul Vallis and Brandon Johnson, I supported Paul Vallis because he was making he understood the law and order component of how you run a city. And he understood that without law and order, you can't have anything. We were talking about the teen takeovers that happened before you joined the panel that just happened a couple of days ago. It's March, and you've got these teen takeovers starting because we've had an uncharacteristically warm March. But you can, if people don't feel safe on the CTA, if they don't feel safe in their neighborhoods, if they don't feel safe taking advantage of the city amenities that are available downtown, and they're being taxed to death, what's the motivation for people to stay? They're going to continue to out-migrate. That's going to shrink the population, and then you've got to tax the people who remain more. That's his only solution, because Brandon Johnson refuses to lower spending.
So again, nobody wants to leave the city of Chicago and move to Boise, Idaho. Nobody wants to move to Iowa. Nobody really wants to move to Arizona. These places have nasty food, okay? Chicagoans love to eat. So we don't want to move to these off-brand spaces, okay? This is the truth. That the Lake Michigan keeps us tethered here, okay? It's the water that makes the food delicious. But we have too many vacant lots. It's not like we're a city of vacant buildings. Well, if you were CHA, they got plenty of vacant buildings, which is another issue. But when it comes to market rate available housing, we don't have it. People are moving out of state because they got to move out of state. I'm going to give you an example. I have a church cousin named Brianna, and Brianna is in her mid-20s. She got stomach cancer. She got ovarian cancer. Brianna got a housing voucher because this is the city of Chicago. That voucher sent Brianna to Oklahoma for a year because when you get the vouchers, you got to move for a year because it's federal. And then after your year, you can possibly come back to Chicago to find housing. And so that's what she did. And she almost died in Oklahoma. Why did she have to go to Oklahoma? Because we don't have enough housing in Chicago. So those are our problems, aside from the fact that we exist in a social service economy. Everybody got an organization. Everybody, again, the plantation. So the plantation is untaxed because it's a non-for-profit. The plantation is not paying property taxes. The plantation is not paying water. And we have a whole bunch of vacant parcels that are not producing and paying into the tax levy. So on 16th Street, which used to be a commercial corridor, that's now empty. Roosevelt Road, Madison, Chicago Avenue, North Avenue to an extent. All of these spaces were meant when they wrote out the budget, the template for the budget. Okay, we expect to get this much money from the commercial corridors, this much money from the residential parcels. Now, if the commercial corridors are empty, then their tax levy gets pushed onto the homeowners. And then the homeowners got to pay their portion, but it's only being paid by the houses that are still in the portion because it's too many vacant lots. That's the problem in Chicago. That's the root of every problem we got in the city of Chicago is vacant land, which is why I've been to the White House several times to try to get an audience with somebody that work in houses to say, yo, why y'all not building housing in Chicago? This is our main problem. I went to the White House the first time in 2018. And I went there not because I thought that I was going to go to the White House. Well, I knew, okay. So I happened to be on a blog and it says Sunken Place Coon Festival. And I'm like, what is this? So I clicked it and I saw Ben Carson's picture. I'm like, whatever this is, I got to sign up because I need to go get an audience with Ben Carson to tell him about how crazy housing is in the city of Chicago. This is 2018. This is after they did the mass demolition of the multifamily housing throughout the city of Chicago. That's why the schools had to be closed because we got too many vacant lots. The more vacant lots you have in your neighborhood, the higher your property taxes went up. This is not some conspiracy against Black folks. This is simple math. Let me just finish the thought. So long story short, I get to the White House and I tell Ben Carson, hey man, y'all talk too much trash about our city and it needs to stop. We're dealing with housing mismanagement and you, the HUD secretary, fix us, help us. So that's what type of time I'm on. And that's why I can, talk about this and see this through a whole different lens other than Brandon being trifling. Because even if we get rid of Brandon today and bring in somebody tomorrow, if we're not putting shovels in the ground, nothing's going to improve.
And I agree with you 110%. But here's the little known dirty little secret that no one wants to say out loud. Mm-hmm. If P. Rae and David have $1 million to invest tomorrow, and our choice is Inglewood, Austin, North Lawndale, or Oak Brook, I know where I'm putting my $1 million. My $1 million is going to go into Oak Brook because I don't have all of these intangibles. I don't have to worry about the crime is different. I don't have to worry about, I have a different target market in an Oak Brook market than I would have in an Inglewood or Austin or North Lawndale. Again, so that's what goes back. I blame Brandon Johnson because he's not using his executive authority and actually taking the shackles off of CPD and letting them do their job. If crime gets under control, then people will be more confident about investing their dollars into these neighborhoods. But I know people who go and rehab houses and the materials get stolen, out of the building, or sitting there overnight.
I understand that. I live in Austin. Okay, let me tell you. I live in the Austin community, 60651 Austin. Okay, Central Austin. So I know what it's like to live in the Black community. I know what it's like to have a stable Black community. We have a Walmart in Austin. People are like, oh, they're trying to take the Walmart from Black people. How? When Austin is America's largest Black community and we have a thriving Walmart on North Avenue in Costner. So we are a community that's pretty much self-contained. On top of the fact that we have the amenities of the western suburbs. So for us, my parents, for instance, when they graduated from college, they moved back to Austin and bought property in Austin. Why? Because the Chicago public schools are the best schools in the state of Illinois. And if we would have went across Austin Boulevard to OPRF or, those schools over there, they were not as high quality as Whitney Young, Skinner, and Edison Regional Gifted Center. So for us, we always seen Chicago as the better option. So if I had some money, I'm gonna put it here because I know the people over here spending money. I know they're walking down the street every day trying to make a transaction because they're spending money to feel like they can. So people who have businesses over here typically do pretty well. That's why the Arabs have never run away. That's why the Koreans have never run away. That's why the Chinese have never run away. It's us who are saying, "Whoa, Lord, I don't want to be around these other Negroes. I gotta get out of here." And then you rush your child out here to these suburbs where they're not treated right. You frustrated because you're going through all these microaggressions. My daddy always said to us, David, I would rather deal with vice lords than racist white people because I can't take that. And cool. So I live out west. And I love it here. When I say I love it, I love it. I've never seen this space as a deficit. And I think that if we focus more on the positive aspects of it, we can get our people to come home. Because all people do on social media from all these far-flung spaces say is, oh, I miss Chicago. I remember this time. I remember that time. Come back and have those times. But they're not going to do that if the Cook County courts are not properly prosecuted. The Chicago police can catch you, give you to the prosecutor say, sorry, we can't move forward. Now that person back outside. We got to change the legislation of the Safety Act.
Yeah. That's my point. Yeah, that's my point.
But that's not CPD. That's the Cook County courts. That's what I'm saying. We got to
it's also
that we're holding the proper people accountable.
Yeah, it's also Brandon Johnson as the executive. The mayor sets the tone for the behavior of CPD. Now, you are correct that once you get into the actual judicial system, then you're dealing with judges and you're dealing with the county and the like. But I have spoken to police officers, and Brandon Johnson, he has created a culture. Before he even ran, he was running on defund the police, and he had to walk that back because he was on tape saying that with, I believe it was WCPT, where he said that defund the police is not just a slogan, it's a political objective. Mm-hmm. So when
because they want to give the money to the guys. So they want to defund the police and put it in the CVI program, right? Which is more socialism. He is a socialist. So if you understand that, then you'll just focus on getting him out the way. That's why I talked directly to the White House. When that little girl got shot, I went on Fox News and said, please, Mr. President, please come. They not paying attention and we need some help right now. Do you know they set the whole country on fire? The whole country. The White House responded to me. The Senate, the Congress, the local people, other senators, everybody said, we heard them in Chicago, go send them some help. I'm not focused on fighting Brandon because Brandon is who he is. You can't get mad. We can't force Brandon to be a capitalist. Brandon is in there. We do not have a recall mechanism. So you better try to work your play how you can within this confine. Because as you're fighting, you're not being productive. Not you, David, of course. But I'm saying overall in general. When you're going downtown and you're like, yeah, let me tell you because you ain't da-da-da. Okay, now you told them. But did you go down there? Did you pull some aldermen to your side and say, hey, this is what I need you to do. Think about this, X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really have to know how to be more diplomatic because he is who he is. Everything you say he did aligns directly with socialism. I mean, he told us he's a socialist. So why is anybody surprised?
But my larger point is that the Black community has been beguiled into having some Pyrrhic victory by having the person who sits as the executive be Black. And I'm saying to Black people, look at the deliverables. And if someone else runs and they can give you more tangible deliverables, you don't have any allegiance or any predisposed reason that you have to vote for Brandon Johnson, because in my opinion, he has underperformed, he's yielded suboptimal results, and he's hidden behind platitudes and, like you're saying, these socialist ideas that we know don't work.
That's it. That's it. But we know that though. That's what I'm saying. Like the first time I went down there and I got on the mic, I just told him like, yo, You took the money, you gave it to the migrants. We need a rehab in my neighborhood. My neighbor needs to go to rehab. This is what happened to her. You live in the hood. You see the leaning. You see the pass out lines. You see the overdosing. You know we need rehabs. So please put the money back for the rehabs. After that, I didn't go down there on some rah. No. How you doing, Mr. Mayor? This is what we need. Can you do this for us? That's what you got to be on, because he's not going to, like I said, you can't force him to be a capitalist. A socialist would definitely do a head tax, because the socialist goal is to reduce capitalism as much as possible by any means necessary. So of course you're going to let crime get out of control so that the capital will leave. You will put taxes that make the business environment unstable. You will put exorbitant fines and barriers on developing out of the land. So, you know, we know this is what socialists do. It's a handbook. So if you understand that, then, you know, just get what you can. That's what I'm telling everybody. Get what you can in the meantime.
Here's my favorite statement. One of my favorite statements from my friend, John Hope Bryant. He said, before you can spend money like a socialist, you have to earn it like a capitalist.
Correct.
And that's what Brandon Johnson doesn't get. Hey, I don't want to take up any more of your time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, someone just left. It's okay. I live, so my house burned down. I keep telling everybody, my house really is burned up. And so it's gutted, but somehow or another, I can't get permits to do the rehab. So I live in an insurance situation with my family, and shout out to everybody that's helping me right now. But even that, you know, and then the building department called me, David, and they were like, why are we getting so many calls on this building, blah, 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 blah. So I tell them who I am. They're like, oh, this P. Rae? Oh, yeah, we understand what this is about. You see what I'm saying? Like, why are you playing with me? Because I just want my money spent in a capitalist way? That's it. I'm not asking for nothing more than I'm not entitled to. My grandmother said we didn't leave Mississippi to come up here with our hand out. We came up here to work. So if we have the opportunity to work, we got the land, labor, and logistics to support any type of capitalism in the world, right here in Chicago. When Sears was on the west side of Chicago, they were the largest company in the world, and the North Lawndale community was the richest Black neighborhood in America. And now look at it. But if we bring back capitalism, take the people off the non-for-profit stipends and put them back into production, you know, you got to go get you a factory job, brother. You got to take that vest off. We don't need no more vests. We need you to get up here and start pushing out whatever this product is so that we can grow our country's GDP. You can earn a salary and go buy y'all a house. Why is that not promoted?
No, I know plenty of people who have convinced themselves that buying a house is an impossibility. I remember having did a show on VON where I said, hey, I'm going to show you how to buy a house for just $1,000, just your earnest money deposit. And that's when they were still giving the grants for buying houses up to, I think it was $30,000 in Illinois. And I said, and I walked through the whole thing. And then at the end, I said, hey, the only thing you have to have is a 620 credit score. And someone put in the chat, well, the FICO scoring system is racist. So that's the thing that I lament.
Grant us grace. Remember, we went through that subprime crisis. They took between 40 to 70% of our wealth through straight trickery, big T, trickery. They had to sit before the U.S. Senate and confess what they did to Black people. And I encourage people to watch it, or at least read the transcript, read the summary. But they said that they purposely targeted Black people in this country with bogus banking tools that were pushed out by Freddie Mac, that was being ran by who, friends? Rahm Emanuel. Freddie Mac pushed all these bogus loans into these regional banks. They came to us with the bogus loans, knowing that the loans were going to balloon and we were going to lose the land. And their goal was to keep the houses for themselves. But the U.S.
Yeah, wait. I mean, I worked in the mortgage industry during that time, and what what happened on the back end, and we don't have to go down this rabbit hole because but what was happening was they were creating these mortgage-backed securities where they were misleading the people who were buying those securities about the quality of the loans that were being bundled. So to your point, yeah, somebody goes to a subprime lender and they get a 2-year ARM, but when they sold it, they said, oh no, this is all a paper. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to go too much down the rabbit hole.
It was an interest rate thing. They were allowing people to buy 2% mortgages, but not telling them that your interest rate is going to go up to 16% in 9 months. That was the problem. And they sold everybody on these bogus loans. There were people who had buildings that were paid off, but they said, you know what? The interest rate is so good. The deal is so good. I'll pull money out of my house for this. There's a man named Mark Diamond. Please look him up, guys. He's a real life demon. Mark Diamond has been on the west side of Chicago since the 90s, scamming Black people out of their homes. So my family was a victim of this. If you look up Goldie Johnson, that's my beautiful grandmother who gave me the space. Goldie Johnson was scammed by Mark Diamond. My granny needed, and it's in the Sun Times, that's why I say you can Google it. My granny needed like $1,500 to fix her floor. Mark Diamond came and gave her some type of deal that gave her like an $87,000 mortgage. How? But my daddy, shout out to my daddy was able to like get it all unwound. But I've met multiple people in the community who said that they've gone through this with him, and he just got convicted. I want to say maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. So he's been doing that all this time. So if you've grown up in an environment and you've watched people get scammed like this, you've watched people work hard, pay their bills on time, hustle for their taxes, do fish fries, you name it, build it on their own house, rigging, all type of stuff, and you see them being taken advantage of by the bank to the point that some people died of heartbreak, yeah, you're going to be hesitant to do it again. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's why I always say we got to grant our people grace.
What I'll say about our people is that if we took control of the things that we have control over, if we did just 10 things, if you get married, graduate from high school, don't go to jail, make sure that you get some sort of skill, whether it's college or some sort of labor skill, go out there, get married, don't have your children out of wedlock, buy a home, buy life insurance, try to get a business if you can. There are 10 things that if the majority of us did those things, we would be far less impacted by the racism narrative or a lot of the other blaming externalities. But again, you and I could go back and forth on that all day. But I do want to end on this note. I think you said earlier you would give Brandon Johnson a D. I would definitely give him an F, because you're saying that he's not purposely doing this, and at least he's trying. That's the way you gave him the D. I'm giving him an F because he's been in this job now for 3 years. Mm-hmm. He has seen the trajectory that his ideology and his worldview has created, and it's unjustifiable. I really think that he believes that he's going to get reelected, because every time he opens his mouth, he says black and brown. Even with the whole the tipped wage thing, he loves to say, oh, the majority of people who are these women are black and brown women. The majority of waiters and waitresses in the city of Chicago are white. And so for him to just continue this narrative of always throwing out the race card, lying. He was in a press conference earlier this week, and he quoted James. I'm glad I remember this, because you made me remember it when you said the word lying. He quoted the book of James, chapter 5, verse 1, and he said, the Bible says in James chapter 5, verse 1, woe to the rich that don't pay their workers a fair wage. And when I heard him say that, I said, wait a minute, I grew up in the church. I don't remember ever reading that. And I went to James chapter 5, verse 1, and if you'll lie on the Bible, you'll lie on anything and anybody, and that was pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back with me. If you'll lie about what the Bible says just to push your words and in my words, like your socialist agenda, you are not to be trusted. Final words.
Just Black people in America, Black Americans, fellow Negroes, grant ourselves grace, okay? We have gone through and endured a whole lot of stuff in this country, but it's still yours. This is our country, the land of our ancestors, buried deep, bone and flesh in this land, okay? So if the country survives, we survive. If the country crashes, we die. So do not allow people from the third world and the immigrant class come here and convince you that this country is not great, because it is. This is the greatest country on the planet for Black people in terms of safety, health, security, wealth, and health. This is a very serious task that we have upon us, and that is to save the whole wide world like the Negro always does. We are winning. We are winning. Yes, we stumble. Yes, sometimes we harm ourselves. But at the end of the day, we still here. We are still here. So God bless America, the land of your ancestors. Stand on your flag. The countries are red, blue, and white, and help each other during the invasion. This is a serious matter. We are in an invasion. Stick together at all times because we all be got. Thank you for letting me come, David.
Patricia Easley, everybody. Hey, we're going to keep doing this between now and the election. So my team will be in touch with you shortly. I really appreciate you making some time for us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, dear. Have a great one. That's Patricia. Thank you to Patricia Easley. Thank you to Jamal Green for sharing some time with us. Again, I wanted to make sure that these lives are going to bring as much value as possible. And what's going on in Chicago with Brandon Johnson, if you are not subscribed to the David Seaton Show on YouTube, do yourself a favor, go subscribe. And I've got an entire playlist of videos that I've uploaded over the last 2 to 3 years, and you can just binge watch. It's just, I mean, he's just the worst mayor. I think he's well intentioned, but he's over his skis. He bit off more than he can chew. Choose your metaphor, choose your saying, your aphorism, but he doesn't deserve to be reelected. A shout out to Savannah, who is listening. Where'd she go? Savannah listening, Savannah 6513 listening all the way from Ohio. Thank you for hanging out with us. Jazzy the Cutie, I think this is my first time seeing you. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. And there's a couple of other people again. Regina Gibson? Thank you. Orpheus Glentow just posted that miss you on YouTube, David. And I'm retooling everything right now. That's why I wanted to go to start playing around with these live formats so that we could have more of an organic conversation. So I am going to be uploading some new stuff really soon. But listen, to everyone who's been in here tonight, this has been really a pleasure. Again, I don't want to take up too much more of your time because we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. For those of you who watched me on VON, I would be on for 3 hours, but 31 out of every 60 minutes was commercials. So we don't have to worry about all of those commercials here. Thank you to Maytag Laundry for sponsoring this show tonight. And like I said, do me a favor. If you're finding value in what it is that we are doing, you can support this channel by subscribing. Again, I love the interaction in the chat, so that's always a way that you can help. Like the show before this live stream ends. Just hit a like or a thumbs up. If you hated what you saw, you can put a frowny face, whatever it is, because all of that interaction helps. But most of all, you can support this channel through, like I said, Venmo at DA Seaton, and you can support this show at Cash App, $, The David Seaton Show. If you have a show idea about anything that you would like for me to cover, for our team to cover, you can email me at thedavidseatonshow@gmail.com. So we've kind of kept that branding consistent so it's easy to remember. And we're going to be going to this format. We're going to be doing lives at 7 p.m. on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. We might retool that because when we first rolled out this schedule, I found out afterwards that the WVON and the David Seaton Show were parting ways. But again, I really appreciate everybody taking the time to hang out tonight. Like I said, you can always support the show. Like I said, the easiest thing you can do is subscribe and leave a comment. Again, shout out again to Tread 1775. He's one of the people I mentioned earlier that he was one of the very first people whose comments went over 100. So shout out to him. And then, Regina said, I will subscribe. I am on Zelle. You know what? I'm glad you said that. I will have that. I'm going to have to figure that out, but I will have that ready for the Sunday actual live, because I do have so I'll have that third option, because some people do prefer Zelle. I never owned a Cash App card. I always thought it was for people who are trying to, be off the grid or, do something on the black market. So I will come back with that option, because again, if that's a way that some people want to support the show, I want to make sure that we provide that option. Marcy C 3311 said, I loved your live. Thank you, Marcy. Appreciate that. Regina Gibson says she will subscribe. I will definitely be here for Marcy C again. And Wendell said, I'm always so much smarter after listening to your program. Thank you very much, Wendell. That really means a lot to me, because there's one thing that I pride myself on. I do not subscribe to this group think that everything, if you followed me at all, you'll know there's one thing that I believe, and it's an axiom by which I live my life. Nobody can stop you from doing anything. And anyone who will try to convince you that white people and racism and slavery and Jim Crow and redlining, and anyone who will try to convince you that someone can stop you from achieving your God-given potential, get away from that person. Get away from that person immediately. If you have friends or family members who think like that, get away from those people, because you are the average of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time. And if you're spending time around people who will not even try because they're convinced before they try they're going to fail, they'll condition you to mediocrity. So again, I appreciate everybody hanging out. Let's see. Somebody else said Zelle comes in handy. First time tuning in. Great show. I appreciate it. Marjorie Tatum. I always wondered how you stayed so long on VON. Hey, you know what? I stayed there as long as I did because, and I really think it had a lot to do with that primary coverage, Marjorie, to be honest with you. I was on that show and I was expressing some opinions that probably ruffled some feathers. And so be it. As far as I'm concerned, I'd much rather be in this type of medium where I can interact with you individually. And like I said, if you have a show idea, you can always email the David Seaton Show at Gmail, and we will cover. I want this to be a community where we're talking about the things that are most important to us. So you can always reach me and say, hey, David, I just found this show, or what do you think about this? Blah, blah, blah. That's how I want this community to grow. So we're right at the 2-hour mark. And so I'm not going to hold anyone any longer than that. I appreciate everybody. Like I said, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, we're going to be going live at 7 p.m. And I'll probably be doing something. I might sneak in something on Friday just to kind of compete with that previous time slot that I had on the radio station. But I appreciate everybody. Like I said, be safe, especially if you're in Chicago, because there's a thunderstorm coming through tonight. And I will see everybody again on Sunday at 7 p.m. Have a great evening, and thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.